Hey, shout out from thepit.com, folks. Good evening. I'm pretty excited about this particular show that we're going to do tonight. We've got some of the regulars here, so I'll let them do a shout out for you, and then I'll tell you what we're up against. So
this is Redbeard. Shout out.
Hey, this is Cody. Shout out.
Pat. Good evening.
All right. So, we're a recovery podcast, and so it's not just about, people's challenges with addictions, illicits, pain, suicides. It's also about a balance in our lives. There's a balance that we've heard about. It's physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. Tonight, what we thought we would talk about in this Man Jam is having a good, in that balance, having a good mental perspective and a physical perspective. And so Cody's got a little background in this, and I think that Pat and I do as well, because we know all about eating, and we've done real well with that. Cody, on the other hand, has a background and a certification in, can you just describe real quick what those are?
So I went through the ISSA programs, the International Sports Science Association, and got certified as a personal trainer. And then I went back and did the nutritionist certification.
Okay, and that's awesome for the show tonight, because we're talking about when people get out of a challenge, especially illicits, their body's decimated, then what can they do to get refreshed and grow back? And we're going to talk about that. But then we also need to realize that if it's true that there is a balance that our bodies and our minds need to subscribe to, it doesn't matter what your background is. So we're going to be talking about some of the things that come to our mind and some of the experiences we have, and then capitalizing on your training. And, and I'm going to say this right up front. I've met personal trainers, I've met nutritionists that, when they say that they are that, then we expect them to look like that. And Cody, you look like that. You look like you know what you're talking about when it comes to nutrition, because you're well, fit. You're a handsome fella. It has nothing to do with nutrition. That's just, I hope you thank God for that. But then, obviously, I know that you do physical training. Pat's one of your minions here, and he's looking really good, by the way. You're a handsome fellow. Didn't want to. Pat, are you single?
I am.
Pat's single, by the way. So,
what's that saying, Bob?
Okay. So we're gonna launch into that, and Rich and I were talking before the show, and you've actually mentioned it when we did some other shows about some of the things that help with the mental. Remember, we're going to talk about mental, and we're also going to talk about, the physical, working out, eating right, yada, yada. Everybody that knows me knows that my drugs of choice are Dr. Pepper. As much as I talk about them, they ought to sponsor us. And anything dark chocolate. I just, I've known you two guys for years, and, I can't pass up Dr. In fact, I'm that guy that when he goes in a restaurant, he says, hey, can I get a Dr. Pepper? And they say, oh, we have Coke. I'm like, yeah, I have water. I can pass up chocolate all day long, but if it's dark chocolate, nah, bring it on.
How do you feel about your Pib?
You know what? I can, Mr. Pibb's okay. I know some people say they can tell a difference. I really can't. And what's that other one, that Dr. Thunder?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I see a difference there either. Maybe my taste buds are just ruined from my, my history. But I can definitely tell what other fountain drinks are. And I don't like them. It's just, now back in the day, the go-to after a rough night was Mountain Dew. But now that I don't do that kind of stuff anymore, I don't do Mountain Dew. No offense, Mountain Dew drinkers.
I'm sure I just.
And as a young man, we get away with that stuff, right? But the older we get. So again, going back to the balance, guys, if a person is productive in life, and I'm kind of gearing this towards you, Cody. I want your thoughts on this. A person's productive in life. They've got a white collar, blue collar job, whatever. They're doing great. They're bringing in, great income. Awesome. They got the material possessions to prove it. Awesome. If they're not taking care of their body, give me an idea of what's happening.
A lot of people that are financially stable, they have a good job, they have a good career. They find, in my opinion, a lot of worth in that, and tend to neglect their physical health. Physical health is so important because there are some people that you can look at and tell, they may be out of shape, but then there are other people that you may look at and say, oh, they're thin, they're slim. So physical health goes far beyond, what you look like on the outside, right? I mean, a lot of people, one of the things that I hear from clients is like, they're like, cardiovascular. So like the treadmill, right? I'm like, no, it's truly like someone can be thin and have horrible cardiovascular because their heart is not conditioned, right? Their heart rate goes way up as soon as they hop on the treadmill or the elliptical or the Stairmaster. So it's tricky because whereas when I was younger, I would, for lack of a better term, ego lift. I wanted to lift big, heavy weights, and I wanted to get big, and I wanted to get strong, and I wanted to look big, and I wanted to look strong, right? But as I've gotten older and gotten more into the science of it and the benefits of being physically fit, I've really changed my mindset altogether. Time under tension, your muscle doesn't know if you're lifting 20 pounds or 200 pounds, right? The muscle fibers just know the amount of strain and stress that you're putting on the fiber. So if you can use proper form and time under tension of the muscle fibers, then you're saving your joints, right? And the older I get, I'm like, oh man, my knees, my elbows, my ankles. So being able to use a lower amount of weight and proper form and good time under tension and putting the same amount of stress and strain on those muscles, you're going to get pretty similar results without the wear and tear on your joints.
So, Redbeard, Pat and I, we're vets, so we all go through our basic training. Redbeard and I went through the Army. Pat went through the Marine Corps. Before going in, I was in reasonable shape. Coming out, man, I checked myself out in the mirror because I was like some dude from neck down. And like, it's for radio, that's why we're doing a podcast. Directing this towards Redbeard, Pat, what happened when you guys got out of training? We're in our what do they call that? Our middle-aged life now. So what are your thoughts about working out?
Doesn't happen. I mean, I think you nailed me. Whenever it wasn't I think initially when I first got out, I wasn't burning calories. That wrecked me. I struggled to make time.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what what we were talking about in the beginning is that priorities and being able to have a good balance, right? To be able to have a good balance with your home life, with your career. But part of that I've made a big focus on in my life is my physical fitness. And I noticed that when I work out that I sleep better. Therefore, I have a better day at work. Therefore, I'm in a better attitude. My mindset is better. I'm not as irritable. I'm not as, and you also get that sense of accomplishment, right? Like I did something, and you get that soreness and you're like, wow, I can feel sore. And this is the product of that I went and worked out and that soreness and that lactic acid buildup in my muscles. So I think that balance is key, because formerly being an addiction and having an addictive personality, I went the opposite direction where I was working out 6-7 days a week. And that's also not healthy for your body, right? You're tearing up your body that way. The same way with your career and hyper focusing or fixating on your career and overworking yourself in that aspect of your life. It's also not good to, 6-7 days a week in the gym. You got to let your body rest. And
So Pat, you work outside, and those are very good points, Cody. I'm going to come back to that. You work outside, and you do a lot of manual.
Sure.
So a fella doing manual work as much as you do, I know how much. Why does somebody have a regimented exercise program?
Well, for someone that does a lot of manual work that already works out a lot, the thing about that is, you definitely want to make sure that your diet, your nutrition, and especially your hydration is definitely dialed in, right? You want to make sure you're getting enough fluids, you're not dehydrated. And, someone like myself, I sit behind a desk all day, right? So I can go to the gym and really push myself pretty hard and get a lot of cardio in that aspect on the treadmill or whatever cardio I choose to do. But someone who's already doing physical work as a career, they may have, a different workout plan. It's different for every person's goals. Like, whereas Pat's outside, he's sweating a lot, he's already doing a lot of manual labor. So I wouldn't put as much cardio in a program that I would create for someone like him. And it's also depending on his, on the person's goals, right? But already doing manual labor, already working outside, being in the heat, the most important thing I would say is making sure that your nutrition and your water intake, your water consumption is where it needs to be. Because if you're dehydrated and then you work all day outside and then you go to the gym, and then you're prone to muscle cramps, you're prone to injuring yourself, potentially pulling a muscle, potentially injuring yourself in the gym because you're not putting in your body the water that you're sweating out all day.
Okay. And I get that. Redbeard and I would connect at the ruck sites. We did a lot of rucking, and hence my passion is being an old rucker. So why do I have to do other things? Why can't I just put on a 25, 30 pound weighted vest and then go ruck, some hills, get some strenuous activity in? Why is it important that I do anything else?
Well, so there's a couple different things like mobility, flexibility, being able to be mobile, being able to be flexible. There are a lot of people that go in the gym. They may look big, huge, and strong. They have the big muscles, but they have no range of motion. They have no flexibility. They have no mobility. You see these big bodybuilders, and they can't touch the middle of their backs, right? They can't, do a toe touch. And so I think that's a big aspect of being well-rounded. It goes back to balance, right? You want to have a good balance of rucking's fine. That's great. And if that's something you enjoy for a good cardiovascular workout, that's great. But you also want to make sure that you're stretching. You also want to make sure that, in my opinion, I always suggest to stretch before and after your workout. You do a cool down after your workout and stretch, because again, you could injure yourself, but it really depends on the person's goals, right? To be overall healthy, to have a healthy heart, to have a healthy lifestyle, and to be able to be mobile and to be able to do the things that you enjoy, like rucking. You also have to be consistent.
Okay, so when you say consistent, and you talked about focusing on one area, like I went to air assault school with all these muscle heads. I was intimidated because these were, not all of them, but there were some guys that was monster, and the cadre were laughing at him, and it was kind of insulting to watch this dialogue, because as trainees, we don't say anything, we just take it. But these cadre were in great shape, but they made a point, you look good, but can you fight? Kind of like the Dirty Dozen line. It came to fruition on 0 day when we had to do these obstacle courses that you had to crawl, you had to climb. We had to climb some ropes, some high ropes, and these guys were struggling. Then it was the wall. And it wasn't an assist, like a team building thing. It was an individual thing, and you had to get over that wall on your own. Well, I'm not a big guy. I'm slender, and I'm blessed that I have that kind of build. Now, some of those guys, I would want to, if we were fighting in the Alps, they can carry 2 extra barrels on a 60 over, I couldn't carry one. So, there's a place for that. But in that type of training, my build paid off. What I've discovered over the years, because I'm a little bit older than you guys, is that when I was younger, all I did was weights. I didn't do anything else. I wanted to be a musclehead, but I couldn't get there. No matter what I did, I couldn't look like those guys. So I understand that some people are genetically predisposed, to being a musclehead, to look good and be Schwarzenegger or Charles Atlas. Well, I get that. But I also discovered that I was, and you mentioned earlier, tearing up my body. I've had 3 shoulder surgeries now because of trying to be a musclehead. And guys like you come into my life and ask me simple questions like that Dave Goggins guy, everybody knows him. He had a lot of issues with his physical body and discovered that he wasn't doing enough stretching, which you said you believe in having that before and after an exercise. That guy spends, I think I heard him say, 3 hours a day just stretching. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit much for me, but I do stretch. But then there's also the balance of, I do very small weights, but lots of repetitions because of my build. I had to have a guy like you, Cody, to come into my life and just, hey, Bob, you got to look in the mirror and just accept the facts. You're never going to be a big boy. You're a small fella. So here's what I recommend for your physical fitness, regimen. Lots of stretching and, light weights and a lot of them. But then there's these other exercises that are floor exercises that are not weights at all. And again, Redbeard and I were talking about that. I'm going to step out for a sec on this. Do you remember we were talking about this lady that we knew that challenged us to aerobics and yoga. And I told her both of those are for, I'm going to say something polite on the air. They're for those that, other than those that want to be men, And I took the challenge and the aerobics. In the first 10 minutes, I was done. In yoga, I'm looking at all these people that are, in that yoga class and the things they can do. There was no way. The balance, so talk to me about, that's a different type of balance. I'm talking about, just the things they could do with their body on one leg and a hand, Some of these guys were balanced on their heads. I could never do that. So talk to us a little bit about incorporating different types of workouts.
Yeah. So, touching on the yoga, a lot of people think that yoga is easy, right? And it's not. It takes an extraordinary amount of core strength to do yoga. It takes a lot of balance. It takes a lot of flexibility. It takes a lot of mobility. I think, as far as you had mentioned earlier, genetics play a big part of it as well, right? Like some people are just genetically blessed, and their genetics are just, they're able to gain muscle quicker. They're able to, and they're than those of us like myself and you who in the fitness industry are what's referred to as like a hard gainer. So a hard gainer is someone like that struggles to put on lean muscle mass, that struggles to keep lean muscle mass because our genetics, we burn a higher calorie count. Our metabolisms may be faster than some people. And as I've learned, as you get older, your metabolism, it slows down. The metabolism slows down as you get older. I can't eat what I used to eat. Right. And so to be well-rounded, I think the main thing is to have a good cardiovascular, to not gas out after 10 minutes of aerobics, right? To be able to go up a flight of stairs, to be able to enjoy life, to be able to enjoy your kids, your grandkids, to be able to be around. And so, cardiovascular is very important. Aerobics, calisthenics. You see these guys that do calisthenics, they're amazingly strong, but they're also very, very flexible. And to have a good amount of strength, right? Because it's one thing just to be strong. You can be strong and have no endurance and have no cardiovascular. You can have a lot of endurance, like you see these runners. They're thin. That's the sport that they mastered, but you don't need a lot of muscle mass for that. And I think the goal is, at least for myself, is to be well-rounded, to have good flexibility, good mobility, to have a decent amount of strength, to not tear up my joints so that my body's not, I'm not getting knee replacement at 60, to not have to have a hip replacement, and do it smart, to be able to do work with tension bands, be able to stretch, be able to touch my toes, be able to do the things in everyday life. I like to go and hike. I like to go and kayak. I like to go and fish. And I want to be able to do those things and enjoy those things without being winded, without being out of breath, without feeling like, oh man, I'm never doing this again because this is miserable, right? And so I think between strength, flexibility, mobility, your cardiovascular, and then also having a decent amount of core strength. And so I think all of those things are really important as far as an overall scope of having a physically healthy lifestyle. And nutrition, plays a huge part in that. As far as like your genetics play a huge part, your nutrition plays a huge part. And there's a saying where they say abs are made in the kitchen. You can't outwork a bad diet, So what we put in our bodies play a huge role on our physical health.
Before we get to nutrition, I think all of us seen lots of advertisements. We see these models, and I know there's algorithms on Facebook and social media and stuff like that they know how old I am, so they know what ads to target with me, right? So I'm looking at Redbeard because you're kind of stuff. All right, so they show guys that are, they make me like, oh yeah, I wish I looked like that guy. But what gets me is it's almost like a cookie cut program. You buy this program and we're going to have you shredded looking like this, but they're not analyzing me. They're not doing an interview with me to find out, regardless of my goals, it's what can my body do? You as a trainer, when you have a client, I'm sure there's things that you have that you do out of respect to your client take into consideration. What does that look like? And before I get that, because I want to talk about recovery And I want folks that are coming out of an alcohol and drug background where their bodies are decimated. So thinking of those types of people in mind, they're out of that lifestyle. They want to get fit. I'm one of those guys. I come to you. Tell me what that looks like in an interview.
So typically the process is that we do a fitness assessment, right? So in our fitness assessments, with a new client that comes in, they're out of recovery. They've torn up their body. I go through and I ask them, do you have any injuries? Do you have any prior injuries? Have you ever had surgery? Have you ever had this? Do you ever have that? Have you ever had you name it, right?
So you want to know their limitations.
I want to know your limitations, because the one thing that you don't want to do with a client is push them beyond their limits and then they injure themselves, right? Because you injure yourself, then you're out of the gym 6, 7, 8 weeks, and now you've set yourself back. Whereas I always take a nice, slow and steady, gradual approach to meeting that fitness goal. And whether it's weight loss or muscle gain, the slow and steady wins the race is my approach. And but someone coming to me, I would tell them, and I can only speak for myself, but like out of addiction, I was trying to kind of fill a gap of like something that would then I could be able to then become addicted to, right? Like working out is for a while what I did, and I learned that I would push myself too hard, and I'd be in the gym 6, 7 days a week. And so I always tell my clients, especially if someone's coming out of addiction, is like, just like with addiction and going off the rails, you can't do the same thing with your physical fitness, right? You need to make slow, gradual changes. You have to eat right. You can't push yourself to the limit and potentially injure yourself. And then I ask them, okay, what are your goals? Because my workout plans are going to be depending upon, do you want to lose fat? Do you want to gain muscle? Do you want to just, what are some of the things that you're wanting to focus on? Because I want them to be able to work towards whatever goal it is.
Okay, so when I first got clean, sober, I actually encountered with a trainer that I wasn't comfortable with. And of course, I didn't realize then why. He was pushing me because in his assumption, this guy's 23, 24 years old. He, in his mind's eye, because he didn't know my past, he did ask me questions, and I appreciated that limitation. But he didn't take into consideration because he didn't know what the inside of my body looked. And for instance, Google, I went to and Dr. Google taught me alcohol, and not even drugs, which I'll get to in a sec. Alcohol impairs balance, coordination, impulse control, memory, decision-making, increases risk of injuries right away. So my body was already weak on the inside. This is obvious. Alcohol can cause hangover. Alcohol poisoning, falls, accidents. So long-term effect. Alcohol damages organs like the brain, nervous system, heart, liver, pancreas, and contribute to 200 different types of injury. No alcoholic knows that, nor do they care. And when they're caught up in the throes of their addiction, throw caution. But these are the things that are happening. And in this thing, this article I read, and of course, most of my insight comes from government sites. Not that they're all, truthful, but I think they're a little more truthful because they're drawing information from other professionals, their own studies, whatever. So I feel a little more comfortable with those types of sites. But I'm looking through all this stuff. What stuck out to me was the weakened bones, a fracture and break easy. When I started working out, I got injured almost immediately. And I was a little taken back because I quit working out older. I was active duty at the time. And I got away with it, because you only have to physical training test, like twice a year. And so most people like myself, just make the minimum, just pass the minimum. And then I would, it took me 30 days to recover from that exertion, where most folks that work out regularly, their bodies are already in shape. They're ready to take a physical training test at any time, and then they go back to duty, no problem. I'm in a bathtub full of ice. So reading that's just, I don't even know. Looking at the drug side effects with the body, some of them are similar, some of them are not, but most of the drug use seem to really just affect the brain, whereas alcohol really took a toll on the body. And I'm sure there's more research out there that I just didn't take copious time to find. How do you know? You can't, or can you? Do you just, as a trainer, when you're looking at somebody, if they look good, how do you avoid making bad assumptions?
So that's a very good question. And so the question, the Q&A portion of the fitness assessment is just that. You ask those questions, and it's kind of like when you go to the doctor, right? And they're like, oh, how many beers you have in a week? Oh, one. And you're going home and having 5, 6 every night, right? Yeah. And that's what people do with their trainer as well, right? They'll say, I probably eat about 1,800 calories, maybe 2,000 calories a day, and da 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 da. And so then the second portion, it's a hour and a half, the fitness assessment. I usually do about 30 minutes of the Q&A, ask any questions, and then we have a biometric machine. So the biometric machine is going to, you can't lie on the numbers, right? So it tells you your body fat, your body water, your muscle mass, your lean muscle mass, your skeletal muscle mass, what your basal metabolic rate is, the rate at which your body's burning, calories. And so I look at that. But then the big thing, and I think what you're touching on is for the first maybe 2 to 3, even 4 sessions with a client, but the second part of that fitness assessment was we actually go out into the gym and we say, okay, here are a couple things that we discussed based on your biometrics, based on what you've told me. I then suggest certain movements, certain exercises, and I observe them. And 9 times out of 10 with guys, they'll say, no, this isn't too heavy. And I see them struggling, and I can see right away. I see that's too heavy. Drop the weight. And they'll look at me like, and I'm saying, that's too heavy. I can tell you're struggling with that, right? I can see you're compromising your form. You're starting to flare your elbows, or we're doing some sort of lower body motion. We're doing squats. I can see that your knees are flaring out. I can look and see these things, that either the weight's too heavy, or when we're doing stretches and mobility, I can see exactly, what their limitations are, right? And you have a couple different types of clients. You have clients that'll push themselves way too hard, and you'll have to dial them back and say, hey, no, this is where we need to start.
Are those the guys that burn out quickly too?
They burn out pretty quickly, yeah.
They're not seeing results in 10 days.
Right. And then you have clients that are the complete opposite, right? They want to come in and then they don't, say, okay, one more. And you have to really be encouraging with those clients, because they're doing the bare minimum. They come in, they're like, okay, let's just call it, or, and then, you'll have to say, no, we still got 4 more reps over here. We still got a whole nother set over there. We can't call it just yet, right? Like we got to do this, and this, and you got to push them. So it depends on the client, and I observe them, and it probably takes at least 3 to 4 sessions with the client, and you start to see, okay, this is the type of client, and they kind of fall into one of those few categories. And you can see, and like you mentioned with the balance, I can tell a lot by different movements. You can do just body weight movements, and it depends on the age of the client. A lot of clients, I'll just do body weight moves, just body weight squats, where you just air squat and see what their balance is doing. You can see if they're leaning to one side. You can see if they're nursing their left shoulder. You can see if, when they're doing box step ups, that when you do single leg box step ups and they're stepping up with their right leg and you're at a 20-inch box step up, and then when they get to that left leg, they're really struggling and starting to shake. Maybe we need to go down to 18 inches. Maybe we need to go down to 16 inches, because that left leg we may need to run. And again, with the biometrics, it'll tell you exactly how many pounds of muscle are on your left leg, how many pounds on your right leg, left arm, right arm, your trunk, midsection. It'll tell me everything. And I look at that and I explain it to them. This is exactly what these numbers mean. This is what we're showing, right? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, how does that machine get all those numbers? And I'll say, well, it sends signals, it sends pulses through your body, through your feet, up and back to your feet, several different pulses, different frequencies, and each one determines, how long it takes the pulse to get from one leg to the other leg.
Good
back up.
night.
And so it's,
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So biometrics don't lie, right? It's just like saying, I don't get high until they do a lab test on me, and evidence demands a verdict. Pat, so I've never met an active duty Marine that didn't look good in his uniform. Now, Redbeard and I can attest that we've known some soldiers that, probably use the same tailor as Jabba the Hutt, but not with Marines. So tell me, you were already a sports guy in high school. You did all the jock stuff, and then you went in the Marine Corps. When you got out, did you see a difference? What were you, 24 by the time you got out?
23. Yep.
So, how long did it take for you to lose that, or that Marine look good body?
Very quickly. So when I got out, I wanted to be a state trooper. And once that went away, I didn't care no more. I didn't have to stay in shape. I didn't have to do nothing. Now, I had friends along the way that, we would go to the gym and this and that, but it was always playing around. It was never, I avoided the gym. I avoided running, everything, even in the Marine Corps. I was not one of your picture perfect Marines. I lost a lot of weight in boot camp. Went in at 225, got out at 165. Massive, body change in just a short period of time. And I wasn't able to sustain. I didn't have the mindset. And, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I told a lieutenant colonel, I was like, sir, if you could promise me that I didn't have to run, I would retire. I would retire in the Marine Corps. And of course, they can't do that. Marines are going to run. But the thing about it's mental for me. It beats me before I even do it. Running it beat me before, and going to the gym, it beats me before, because I look at, at the facility that we work out, they got the big room and all these people are, massive and this and that. And I'm like, I ain't never going to be that. Why even try? Why do I want to, put myself through this? So, with Cody, I am that guy. He encourages me, and that is, I never had that before. I can't push myself. It's similar to recovery. We need those people around you that are going to, ask the questions, that are going to push when they see a need to push, that's going to encourage when they need to encourage. So I'm that latter guy, that Cody was talking about, and the nutrition thing, and, it's still new to me. We've only been doing it a couple months, and I don't even think we've got, if we'd been doing it 6 months, we may have 3 months in the gym. I can make pretty good excuses every once in a while, but I also am living a life directed towards, hey, I've got something to do in recovery, or I've got something, that I feel like is more important to a certain extent. My mind it's starting to change. I know I need to take care of myself, which I never did, especially after the Marine Corps, never took care of myself. And we pay the consequences for it. At 40 years old, I had a heart attack, and I can't blame it on anybody but me. Now, I was in a journey of recovery, but I wasn't taking care of myself. I may have been, spiritually pretty good, emotionally pretty good, mentally pretty good, but the physical part, man, the program I work, we like to eat. We like to eat a lot. And I was finding, that I'm eating out 3 times a day. That's not healthy. So when I look at my journey, God has put people in my life to better me in certain areas. Along comes Cody, didn't know him from anybody. And now, we're doing this together, but we're also in the gym. And he told me the other day, you're my workout buddy. And I was like, oh man, cool. I'm his workout buddy, but, and I wish I was to that point where I could encourage him in the gym, but we're not there yet, so I still have to get the encouragement from him,
Your motivation, Pat, wasn't the heart attack was a result of unhealthy nutrition, exercise. I get that. What is your motivation? What do you say to yourself? I mean, what does it take for Pat to go, okay, I'm going today with Cody? What do you do?
So my motivation starting out was, man, and I know there's people out there that do this. They look at themselves in the mirror and they're like, ugh, how did I get here? Kind of like my drinking. Ugh, how did I get here? And there had been something on my mind for a while. And again, I think God works, he's doing for me what I can't do for myself. So met Cody, and hey, Cody, he just mentioned, I'm at this facility after, normal working hours, and you're more than welcome to come, and I'm like, man, this, again, I got to, when it's on my mind and then something like that shows up, we got to think about that, And I told him, I don't want to get big and swole, I'm not a muscle head. I want to lose some weight so I feel better about myself, So I can look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm not this, fat, person. So the motivation, when it's there now, at this point in the year, it's hot outside, so I lose motivation real quick because I'm out in it all day. And I'm like, well, today I walked 15,000 steps. That's a pretty damn good day. That's better than most people. Why do I have to go to the gym? But then I look at what I've ate today. Cody's kind of got that. Did I burn enough calories on that 15,000 steps compared to what I ate today and what I drank? No, absolutely not. So there's a little bit more motivation. How can I say I want to lose weight and then, not do the things that it takes to? How can I stay sober and not do the things that it takes to? I look at it, similarly, like I said, to the whole recovery program. I have to take action. I believe God will move that mountain. I got to bring the shovel, right. So.
Okay. That was a great answer. And I think, again, there's people out there that we all know. I mean, they're heavy. This country, I was looking at some stats and I thought, we can just wake up in the morning. I can go to Walmart, go to Kroger. I can go, and he's talking to this mic, I can go anywhere and see people that are overweight. And you know what? They're happy. They're very happy with where they're at. So it's not my place to judge them. I use that same kind of philosophy that we have, in our recovery program. To each his own. What matters to me? So I guess, Cody, when you're talking to somebody, if Scripture were to walk into your arena and say, I'm interested in working out, do you ask those questions about what is your purpose, your motivation, and do you use that to help encourage them? Like Pat said, you encourage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's we touch on that as far as fitness, and a lot of people will say, like, what are your goals, right? But goals look different. You can set different goals. Some people's goal is just to keep weight off, right? Some people's goals are to lose fat. Some people's goals are to gain muscle. And I'll also say, like, have you set any goals? Like, do you have an event coming up? Do you have, a lot of people say, I have a wedding in the summer that I need to lose. Pretty much tell what kind of client. But the more you get to know your client.
What do you mean by that?
that client is going to want to lose weight fast.
Okay.
They'll probably work pretty hard to lose the weight. They'll probably be one of the clients that puts themselves too hard and think that they can lose 30 pounds in, 3 months before the wedding. And I have to kind of tell them, like, that's it. You're not going to do it healthy. I mean, it's possible, right? But it's not going to be a healthy choice,
like
right?
like a high school wrestler trying to make that weight class, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So the more you know about your client, and I like to interact with my clients, and, are you married? Do you have kids? What kind of lifestyle do you lead? What kind of things do you like to do outside of the gym? What do you do for work? Do you do, what are some of their motivations? What are some of the things that I can use and tell them, like, hey, you had mentioned that, like, you're on a trip with your wife to, XYZ to Florida. And that you said that you're a bit self-conscious, take your shirt off on the beach, hey. And so when you're in the middle of it and you're running on that treadmill and you'll say, hey, John, you remember we talked about, man, like we've got X amount of days until we're on that beach in Florida. And I'm here to help you meet those goals. I want to do everything that I can do to help you meet those goals. So if looking good aesthetically is their goal, I'm going to do it. And suggest the healthiest way possible to do that. I'm not just going to say, go on a crash diet, drink nothing but water, and eat, one piece of bread a day. I'm going to tell them, and I do have to tell them, this is what is obtainable, right? Because I'm never going to give advice on something that is unrealistic or unobtainable or something not going to be beneficial to their health. I'm not going to give them unrealistic expectations. Hey, this is what your goals are. This is where I could see us being in X amount of time if we have our diet, if we're working consistent, if we're doing the things that we need to do. And sometimes their goals are, way unreal. Their goals are like, I lose 2 pounds and so it all depends on that person and what motivates them, what's driving them. And a lot of people, quite frankly, will come in and say like, I just want to be slim. A lot of people don't care about the aspect of it, of like having a healthy heart, having mobility, being able to be well-rounded physically. A lot of people just want to look in the mirror and they want to look good. And a lot of clients, I had one, the LGN. He said, I want to look good nude. When my wife sees me get out of the shower, I want to look good with no clothes on. That's my goal.
Wow.
And
that's a good man.
And he said, that's my goal. He said,
all right.
My wife works really hard and she does spin class and she does this. And he said, the first, year or two of our marriage was I gained weight in that first year or two. And she has stayed very physically active. So I know that that's a motivation for him, that he to stay in shape for his wife. I hear a lot of my older clients that'll say like, I want to be around for my grandkids and my great grandkids,
That's motivation.
So that's the motivation that you find, is whether it be someone who wants to have longevity and be able to run around with their grandkids in the backyard and go to t-ball game, whatever, or it's a younger guy who wants to look good for his wife, or if it's someone who just overall wanting to live a healthy life. So
well, there's an uncomfortable reality there that a lot of people step out of their marriage relationship because one of them has gotten out of shape. And this is one of those times when I just want to slap some men because their wives have given childbirth, and that takes a monumental toll on the body, and yet the man is unappreciative of that and steps out on the relationship. But I've seen it the other way too. And I've seen it, and it's sad, but you make a point. The man wants to step out of the shower and look good for his wife. I appreciate that. I think there was another point. Yeah. You made me think of my wealth management. I'm going to give a shout out to Oakcrest, Clark Johnson. This guy, he's young like yourself. And, we started our journey in wealth management, over a decade ago. And he was a very young man. And he's done well for himself because he's done well for me. But this is a long-term investment. So if somebody comes to you and they're straight up honest, hey, I want to look good for this wedding that's coming up, and after that, I'm going back to pizza. Hey, well, they're honest. If somebody comes to you and says, I want to look good, well, how long do you want to sustain that look? And let's talk reality about how long it's going to take to get there based on your biometrics or okay. So this is a long-term investment, and I get that. My motivation, it might be a little different than other people. I'm in that senior citizen class, and I go to like today I took one of our tribe members to have a procedure done at the VA. And I see these guys at the VA that are my age, and they are broken. And I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be one of those guys that dies on the couch. I don't mind watching a movie here or there, but when I'm watching a movie, I can't just watch a movie. I got to be doing something. I might be stretching, or I might be eating ice cream, because that's another dark chocolate fetish of mine. And it's a conscious decision about what I'm going to do. And I've got to be a self-starter, self-motivator. And for the longest time, I wasn't. And then I started showing up at those ruck events. Gee, it's been over a decade, Redbeard, when we ran into each other. And I wanted to get in shape. And then the motivation really hit me when I started reading about seniors getting robbed. And, again, Redbeard, you and I have a background in martial arts and, a lot of self-defense stuff. By no stretch am I Bruce Lee or one of these guys that's going to get in a ring. And I'm not built like that, and I'm not dedicated. But I can do enough to, hit and run and scream my brains out for help. But as a senior, I don't want to be a victim, and that is my motivation. I actually worry about, some young thug taking advantage of me because of my age. I worry even more about my loved ones, bullies that are out there. I'm not looking for a fight. Let's face it. I don't think I could survive very long in a fight, but I don't want to get into a fight and just lose right up front because I didn't have the endurance. I didn't have the strength to protect myself. I just don't want to be one of those guys. Now, you hit a certain age, and those in the audience that are listening to this, you know what I'm talking about, where vanity really doesn't matter. And, I'm not a young man. I'm not, full of piss and vinegar out there chasing the clubs and all that. I'm not that guy. So I'm not really worried about vanity. But I am worried. I am more just concerned about being able to do daily activities like maintain my property. I love backpacking, which is why I ruck as much as I do. And I love just being able to hang out with you young guys. Some of the stuff that we do together. I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have this regimen. And this regimen was built because of working with guys like you, Cody, throughout my life and learning different techniques that work for my body. So I mentioned a journey, right? And Pat, you hit it right on the head. It's like a recovery journey. I have to have a sponsor, a mentor. I need to have a group of people that encourage me, that edify me. We all kind of have same goals. And then, and finally, I have to realize that, hey, this isn't something that I'm just going to take on for a short period. I plan on doing this for a while. So that means I got to look at my time management. What part of the day, if I'm a full-time employee, I'm retired now, but like my mom says, you're not retired, you're fired, because I'm engaged in so many things. I'm more busy now than I was when I was employed. But I have to have a time management program. So it's a whole science, putting this whole thing together. If we were to tap into a resource for, and I'm not talking about people that are just coming out of addictions. I'm talking about anybody out there that's listening to this show and, you're getting that little voice in your head, you're a Pat. If you got that little voice in your head that says, hey, it's time to start working out. If I were to, Redbeard, if we were to put something on the resource, Cody, what I mean, I obviously I can't put you out there because this is a national podcast, but what could people do to start? And let me just say this. I am very comfortable with you, but I've seen trainers in the gym, like I said earlier. Seriously, they're a trainer? They don't look like a trainer. So how does somebody that's looking for a mentor, a trainer, in the in this physical activity, how do they know what to look for? What kind of resource can we put on our page to help people get started?
Well, I would say that unfortunately that it's kind of like with anything, right? Like I don't like, for lack of a better term, like shop around. But like when I moved states, I had to find a new church home. And you kind of go to one, you go to the next, or same way with like me and a therapist or a sponsor. You try them out, you're not coming, you go to the next one. And a personal trainer is no different, right? You find someone that you feel comfortable with, you check out their credentials, you have a conversation when you sit down face to face and you tell them what some of your goals are, and you get a general vibe from this person. Is really going to be able to provide the needs that I have for fitness. And I think that's a really good bit of advice, because a lot of people go to one trainer, the trainer's not right for them, and then they're like, they must all be like that. And another thing that is, a struggle is that like a lot of personal trainers, or a good majority of them, probably 70% or more, they are doing it for a paycheck, right? When I started personal training, I had a full-time job. I did it as a part-time job because I got into it because I wanted to truly help people improve their life. And if I could help someone do that, and fitness was something I was passionate about, is something that, when I started looking at family members and I started looking at my mom and my dad, my mom's had 2 heart attacks. My dad passed away in his 40s. Both my grandparents were 60, and heart failure and cancer. And a lot of that's due to their lifestyle, right? But a lot of it, could also be genetics. And those are my genetics. And so that I got into fitness because of that. And I started looking at a lot of my family and looked at their lifestyle. But as far as finding a personal trainer, I would say find someone that fits for you, someone that you feel comfortable with, someone that is going to push you if you need to be pushed, someone that's going to tell you to back off a little bit and not injure yourself if you need to be told to back off, not injure yourself.
Then I wouldn't recommend Dave Goggins.
Yeah, he's
I love that guy.
He's unique in the sense that that's probably the type of trainer that I would like personally. I've never had the struggle of like self-motivation. And that's just me. I get up and I go to the gym and I'm more of the David Goggins mindset, right? Like we make time for what's important. You know, if it's important to us, we'll make time for it. And it's just like in recovery, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. They have to want to, you know, better themselves physically. They have to want to stick to a workout plan. They have to want to stick to a nutrition. And if they don't want it, any trainer in the world, it doesn't matter who it is, the best trainer in the world is not going to force them and make them want it. If they don't want it, they're not going to do it. And it's like pulling teeth. But it is, like you said, the longevity, it's a lifestyle. And what a lot of my clients, you know, they'll say, I just want to look good. And I said, okay, well, if you want to look good, you know, this, and this. And they tend to realize like, oh, if I want to look good, I'm inadvertently living a healthier life, you know, because this is what society has told us, like, this is what looks good. This is what's attractive, which is a whole nother thing. You know, you got Photoshop and you've got lighting and you've got people that are on all sorts of supplements. They're not natural. And they've put in this idea of what someone who's physically fit should look like, and it should be obtainable by anybody, and anybody should be able to, if you work hard enough and eat right, you can too look like me. And it's like behind the scenes, these a lot of these models, a lot of these, you know, actors, a lot of these musicians they're taking supplements, they're taking things that aren't truly good for their body. They may aesthetically look good, right? But then it gives us this image, and we see on different social media platforms of this is what someone who is healthy and eats right looks like. But I mean, it's it's one of those things where you find a trainer that's right for you. There are a lot of online sources that you can use. One is JE Fit. I use JE Fit. It has a ton of different workout programs.
Is that free? Is that
free? Yeah. So they have a completely free one online. It's called JE Fit. And then depending on if you want real specific dialed down, you can pay a monthly subscription for it, but you can get on and use all their free benefits. It has a plethora of workout programs, it even has small little videos that you can watch that demonstrates the different movements, demonstrates the different workouts. But at the end of the day, you have to want it, right? And it is a lifestyle. If you want it and you want longevity and you want to keep the weight off, or you want to keep the muscle on, or you want to keep the certain amount of mobility to stay consistent, want it. And for me, it is a lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle to be able, it's just part of who I am. It's part of what I do. I love it. And I like helping other people reach those goals and letting them realize it is obtainable. And to kind of Pat's effect, I think we've all been there where we're in the gym, myself as a personal trainer included. I'm in the gym and I look over and that guy's lifting a lot of weight. He's been a lot of weight. And in recovery, you know, I had someone tell me that like comparison is the thief of joy. When you're looking at someone else, your fitness journey, my fitness journey, everyone's fitness journey is their journey. When you're looking at the next person, you're comparing your body to their body, or they may be at a different stage in their journey, right? Just because you're at a certain stage in your journey doesn't make your journey any more or less valid than theirs, right? It's your journey. Those are your goals. It's what you've set as a goal for yourself. So I would encourage people not to compare themselves to other people, to focus on their journey, set realistic expectations, find a good trainer that you communicate with and that communicates with you, and stick to it. You'd be surprised. I hear so many clients say, I only had 30 extra minutes today or 45 extra minutes today. Well, that's 45 minutes that you could have come to the gym and done something that you, instead of going home, sitting on the couch, whatever it may be. And I guess the last thing I'll say is that I'm a big supporter of like, find something that you love and that you're passionate about that's physical, whether it be hiking, whether it be cycling, whether it be just walking around the park with your dog, whether it be rucking, whether it be mountain climbing, whether it be whatever it is. Find something that you like, that you enjoy. Sport. Like a lot of times cardio is not my favorite. I'll go play basketball. But I'll play basketball, play 3 or 4 full court games, and I'll look at my watch and I'll see how many calories I burned. And I'm like, what would have taken me X amount of time on the treadmill, like just listening to my headphones, TV or staring at my phone. Whereas you disassociate when you're playing a sport or when you're doing something you like. You're playing basketball for myself, or like when I go on a run at the park, I'm by the water. I can see the water, the sun's there, the birds are out. I'm looking around. I kind of have time to clear my mind. Do something that's physically beneficial that you also enjoy, because it makes it more enjoyable. You almost forget that you're exercising when you're out doing something.
Hey, time flies when you're having fun, man.
Yeah.
Hey, Redbeard, you got any thoughts on this? I can see your wheels turning.
Oh, I got a ton of questions. Way too specific, but I've done a lot of years. I've had taken out years ago, and then more recently my gallbladder. So I've had to change. I gained weight. I've had to start taking fiber, and so I'm juggling and figure out this little pattern. Because I was doing pretty little while. I was down to like 2, and so
And so some of your questions, you said,
like, I don't know if it's a good answer. What food should I be going?
that's a great segue into nutrition. Is that where you're going? So let's take a break, and we'll come back and start on the nutrition route. Is that okay with you guys?
Sounds good.
All right. Hey, welcome back. Shout out from thepit.com. We're sitting here with Redbeard, Cody, Pat, and we're talking about physical fitness, recovery, nutrition. And we had a really good discussion at break about nutrition and apps, which I'm really foreign on. Just to be clear, my nutrition is frozen Angus burgers, buying a Sam's Club chicken and cutting it up with put some hot sauce and mustard with it. Pepper jack cheese, Ezekiel bread because I'm free, and a lot of M&Ms. So Dr. Pepper. So I'm not a nutrition, guru. I understand the importance of it because of just basic stuff you hear, other podcasts, people like you guys are, talking about all this big syllable words, how the body reacts to foods, how we get older, metabolism. So I get all that. I need to care more. I know I do. As a senior, I need to be more concerned, not necessarily with the weight, because I understand people can be 10, 15, 20 pounds overweight and still be very healthy. It's what are they packing, So how does somebody breach especially if they're coming out of a lifestyle of drugs and alcohol, where they've been living off Twinkies and Cokes and pizzas and junk food. And even gamers that don't have illicits, they just sit in front of the gaming TV and do. How does somebody breach the healthy living and nutrition? And, I turn it over to you guys because I don't have an answer.
Well, I always suggest, I mentioned it earlier, slow and steady changes. Like with my clients, for the first week, they expect me to say, okay, you got to cut the Dr. Peppers, cut the, candy bars, cut the Twinkies. I typically tell my clients for the first week, just track what you're currently eating. Don't even make any changes to your diet. You're already getting and you haven't been, in the gym in a time, or maybe ever. It's new to them. So you already have a lot of change, right? For someone coming out of addiction, they're going through that. So I don't like to pile on too much once. So I tell them, just track what you're eating. And then next week, we're going to come back and we're going to look at exactly what you had that. And then I'm going to make suggestions based on what we talked about on your tracking for the week of your nutrition, right? And then you make small increments. We had mentioned just earlier discussing during the break that you can use fitness tracking apps. MyFitnessPal, it's free. I mean, there are a million of them. There's, you just kind of pick your poison depending on how dialed down you want to get on tracking your calories, macros. It really just depends. But I think a good place to start is just track what you're currently consuming and knowing where, okay, this is ground level. This is where I'm at today. And I know what type of body and what type of fitness health I'm in as of now and what I'm eating. My general diet is now. And this is where I'm at. This is our starting point, right?
Okay. A humble request. Will you write out a brief, not like an info paper we had in the Army, but just maybe a brief, something along the lines of what you just said in bullet. You're right where you are. baby steps, kind of like, we're working a 12-step program, right? We take it from the infancy stages and take it easy as we progress. And if you could include those recommended sites, a shameless plug for them, but still, if it's free, it's free. And then those of us that are looking at nutrition, we can look at it, have a resource at our disposal, and we can determine how much energy we want to put into it or not. I certainly hear what you're saying, but I think it goes back, just in my cynical mind, it goes back to what we discussed earlier. If I don't have somebody there, like yourself, Cody, that knows what he's talking about and can use that information based on my metrics and my motivation and my purpose and encourage me using that, I'm going to be pretty much lost. But for those that are self-starters maybe, or trying to be the DIY guys, right? At least they'll have that resource at their hands. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you could do that for us, and then we could, Redbeard, put that on the air. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you a couple of really good resources, either whether it be tracking your nutrition or getting you started with a workout plan, and Jay said earlier, whether it be a pre-made plan, for based on your goals, and start with that, or some can kind of build your.
I love it. I mean, not for nothing, but this is something I'm already reasonably in shape, but we know, and especially Pat and I have quite a bit. I'm not the most disciplined person when it comes to it. If there's one piece of pizza left, nobody wants it. I'm already like tanked and full. I'm going to eat it. I'm the shark. I need to learn to back off. And, I have a large box with pants that I used to fit in. And I look at those and think, I need to take those to, the donation centers, right? And then I think, there's a possibility someday I might fit in them again. And right now I'm full, because I can't walk by a bowl of M&Ms without my anteater tongue attacking it. So, Redbeard, did you have some insight on, we were talking other stuff at the break before I ran up. Do you remember what it is you wanted to? Yeah, it was something.
That's right. I think it affects everybody a little differently. Just trying to relate to, I definitely. But yeah, after I had my gallbladder removed, I found I had to do fiber. So I don't know, it's little things like that. And I'm still trying to find things that are right for recovery.
And off the top of your head, Cody, are there resources that Redbeard could go to that says, hey, if you've had your gallbladder removed, you need to be looking at these types, fill in the blanks?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of resources out there, and depending on, whether you've had your gallbladder removed, your appendix removed, Pat mentioned earlier, there are definitely things that you can utilize in these apps that it'll ask you a question. It'll ask you kind of what your diet's like now, what if you've ever had any sort of physical injuries, whether it be a broken bone, but then it'll ask you, have you had your gallbladder removed? Because depending on if you have or not, you're going to process fats differently, right? Without that gallbladder, you're not going to be able to have red meat, which red meat in general is hard to process for our bodies, right? Like red meat in general, I don't ever consume a lot of red meat. It's not good for your heart. It's hard to process. And then the fats on top of it. If I do a red meat, I'll do a lean, like a 93.7 lean red meat.
Sure.
I do very, but I
have one of those a day and you're okay, right? With
I
a
do
big
that.
fat potato loaded, and then have a cheesecake with a volcano dark chocolate on the side.
Maybe not all of that in one day.
Oh.
And we were talking about that earlier. The goal is to find a nutrition plan where you don't feel like you're starving yourself. You don't feel like, hey, I can never have a piece of cake. I can never have, a piece of dark chocolate, like you mentioned earlier, because then you become discouraged. Oh, if it's going to take, if it's going to take this, I have to cut every soft drink, every chocolate cake, every chocolate bar out of my diet and out of my nutrition in order to meet these goals. There's no way I can do that.
No.
And it's moderation. Moderation is key. Everything's good in moderation, including moderation, right? And so that's the thing, is that to be able to have a healthy, active lifestyle, but to then also be able to still enjoy certain foods that you like in moderation. You can have a piece of cake. You don't want to eat the whole cake, right? You can have a candy bar. You don't want to have 10 candy bars, and to space that out. And a lot of people will say, like, have a cheat day. I preach against cheat days.
Tell me about that. I hear that. I've heard exactly what you just said, but why do you preach against it?
So I support cheat meals, not a cheat day. A cheat day, it takes several days, at least 2, to recover from a cheat day for your body to go through, right? And you're eating tons of sugar, you're eating tons of fats, fried food, whatever it may be. I always tell clients that you can still eat the things that you like in, moderation, portion control. And like say on a Monday, right? You have a cheat meal for breakfast, and then lunch and dinner are healthy. On Tuesday, you eat clean all day. On Wednesday, you eat a healthy breakfast and you have a cheat lunch. And what you're doing is you're spacing out and you're giving your body time to bounce back. You're not loading yourself with all these sugars, all these artificials, all these things that are bad for your body and shocking your all at once in one day, and then it taking you 2 days to recover, because we all know sugar is addictive, right? When sugar comes into your body, sugar is sugar, right? A lot of people say, oh, I'm on a no carb diet. Well, carbohydrates, we need carbs. You want carbohydrates. You don't want an excess of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, the ones that you don't burn as energy are then stored as glucose and then as, fat in your body. But sugar comes in as sugar and is not going to be burned as energy like a carbohydrate would. It's going to come in as sugar. It's going to be stored as fat, right? A lot of people say, sugar is the number one enemy, and it's in everything. It's in things that you wouldn't think of, ketchup, sauces. It's in, your liquid diet. It's in so many things. Sugar is the way from, not necessarily.
Yeah, this is good. Where does this come? This is very important stuff. I'm sorry. I just got handed to, I guess you have to edit out all that dead air. Sorry. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, recovering alcoholics. In fact, I have some stats here, not stats. One of the many doctors, I'm reading right out of the big book. One of the many doctors who had the opportunity of reading this book in manuscript form told us that the use of sweets was often helpful. Of course, depending upon a doctor's advice. He thought all alcoholics should constantly have chocolate available for its quick energy value at times of fatigue. He added that occasionally, in the night, a vague craving arose, which would be satisfied by candy. Full stop. When I came into the recovery program, we all know that alcohol is loaded with sugar. And back in the day, you really don't see it now, and we're going back in the early 80s. The ladies would bring homemade cookies, and a lot of them, because I'm replacing my sugar intake from all the alcohol with the cookies. So what we saw were a lot of people that actually gained a lot of weight, and as a mentor in the program, I would say to people, take the weight. You're off the alcohol. That's a good thing. We'll deal with the weight later. And it's just try to quit smoking and drinking at the same time. Okay, That's a bad combination. So, get off the booze. We'll deal with the cigarettes later, and maybe much later, but as long as you're off the booze, okay. My mother and my dad are incredible examples of anti-sugar. There's a book out there that came out in the 70s called The Sugar Blues. My mother said that when I was born, she was over 200 pounds. If you saw her today, and we're talking about my parents are in their 80s, you would never believe that she was over 200 pounds. They walk twice a day, up to 5 miles a day. They go to the gym every day. They eat, for the most part, very nutritious meals. They're both very slender. And I'm telling you, I have to clarify, this is my stepdad. I call him dad because he's awesome. He was a large man when I met him, 6 foot and change, and extra large. Over the years, as my mom helped him transition into healthy eating, I asked him today, because they wear matching T-shirts. They always wear matching T-shirts. These cute little old couple. And I want to send them, T-shirts, right? With our shout out from the pit. So I said, Dad, what size shirt do you wear? Is it extra large? And my mom started laughing. She goes, those days are gone. It's a large now. And I was like, all right. So I've seen the difference in people. Now, going back to the actual nutrition for alcoholics, I pulled from Dr. And it was from a recovery. And I don't want to give the name of the recovery house. Just like some of these apps, I subscribe to them. One of the apps I went through and I answered all wonderful questions, and it kept telling me how it could help me. We can do this for you. You're going to lose this much weight by, and you're going to look at this. And the end will give you your portfolio or whatever they're going to give me for a fee. I'm like, if I'd have known that up front, I would have gone and bowl of it. Okay, so you folks out there in recovery, if you're already off the alcohol and booze, I think the rest of the show is awesome. That's a Dr. Pepper hiccup. Sorry. If you're coming off of alcohol, here's what you can expect. In the first 12 to 24 hours, life is going to suck. You're going to go through expected. In fact, if you're a hardcore alcoholic, we really recommend that you do it professionally through a detox center so you don't face one of the things we call death. DTs can kill. The withdrawals can kill. So after your first 12 to 24 hours without alcohol, you're going to start feeling the preliminary effects of alcohol withdrawal. They are nasty. Those of us that have gone through it, we can attest, very bad juju. Symptoms include anxiety, insomnia, nausea, abdominal pain, and that's saying it nicely. Wearing a diaper would help out during. Alcohol has a diuretic effect on the body, so you may be feeling more dehydrated than normally, but especially if you're going to, most of us can identify with this, you're going to pass up water to drink alcohol. And that's bad juju too, because obviously the body needs. So in that first day, drink a lot of water and eat plenty of healthy food is generally okay. So 24 to 48 hours, same thing. Your blood pressure is going to be going through the roof. Your increased body temperature, breathing abnormalities, irregular heart rate, sweating, confusion, irritability, and mood disturbance. We have seen a lot of that with the new folks that come in with 12-step program. And, they're shaking. They're, we've talked about it on other shows. We just give them a hug, love on them, give them all kinds of coffee and cookies. Right now, we just want to see them survive the few days. But let's talk about what's happening according to Dr. Google here. After 2 days, up to 3 days, 4 days, the body is an amazing machine. It wants to go back to being healthy. So it's already generating, and I don't know all these big terms. I'm not even going to try and pronounce, but for you that appreciate layman terms, your body is regenerating. It's going back to the way it was, and especially if you're still young enough. After 7 years, your body completely replaced itself. Every cell is new, from your nervous system, your outer skin, your subcutaneous, all that stuff. But now it's time to start putting the good stuff in it. So after 30 days of alcohol recovery, the obsession is gone. And now it's just all mental. And that's really, really key, because it's like building a future with wealth management or health management. Now you need a program. And like we learned from a guest we did a show with, he used this term, the 3 Ps, which I'm going to capitalize and coin it and take credit for myself. First thing you have to do is have a program. Cody, in the nutrition and physical fitness arena, you would be what we would call a sponsor in that, a mentor. So you have to have a program. And then in the other P you would have to have is a purpose. You had mentioned people getting ready for a wedding, and that I wanted to protect myself and keep up with you guys and do basic yard work. So there's purpose, a purpose that has to be tattooed on a forehead. This is why I'm doing this. Why am I getting sober? Because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So, and then the final thing is to have a passion. There's nothing like doing something totally mundane. And you mentioned cardiovascular workouts earlier, how you really don't like them. I can agree. I don't like getting on that elliptical you see in the garage for an extended period of time every day, but it's a necessary evil until I can get out on the trail, where I absolutely love it. Hence the Old Rucker. I can get out there and go forever. So why do I do that? I have to remind myself my purpose. So taking all these things into consideration, for those of you that are new to recovery, you need to find somebody to talk you through the nutrition gambit. Now, again, I'm not a nutritionist, but I know what I shouldn't eat and what I should eat. On the resource side of it, so we can add to, Redbeard can add this to our resources. Where would I go for a good app, nutrition? Some of those things you mentioned earlier, was that, you mentioned the physical fitness training part, but are those also, am I remiss that I missed something in there on the gym part?
So JE Fit is as far as like workout programs, but also MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal is really good, and it will break down, as far as you want to go. If you want to all the way micronutrients, it'll go all the way. It'll tell you what vitamin, it'll tell you, exactly. And one thing, MyFitness, really good. You can't, but one thing I would also encourage people to is just read labels. Turn whatever you're buying at the grocery store, turn it around and see exactly which sodium. Me and Pat did this when we were meal prep. That first week that me and Pat got together to the grocery store, and we looked at every single label. how much sodium is in this, how much fat is this, how many grams, how many, calories overall does it have? Calories is a broad term, describes the amount of fat, the sugar, and then from calories, and you can dial down micronutrients. And
Okay, now you say that, and I'm hearing the words, but how do I know that I should this product because it has too much soda or too much whatever?
So on MyFitnessPal, it'll tell you, like, based on your age, based on your gender, based on your height, your current weight, and your activity, your general activity, it'll tell you per day you should get this many calories. You can go to Calorie Counter and you can put in your age, your height, your weight, and how active or not, and it'll tell you basal metabolic rate is, which is your base, your metabolism, how many calories you're burning a day on average, and for your height, your weight, and you have to be honest with how active you are. If you're only in the gym 1 day a week, 2 days a week, don't say 5 to 6 days. Throw off the numbers. So be honest with you. But
That's a good point.
The caloric calculator will tell you if you want to gain weight, if you need to be in a caloric surplus to gain muscle, if you need to be in a caloric deficit to lose fat. And then those days where you're not going to the gym, you're not exhausted, a lot of energy, what just your maintenance caloric intake needs to be. So I'm not going to gain weight. I'm not going to lose weight. This is my maintenance. On a day that I just want to eat at my maintenance caloric intake, this is what I need to focus on as far as maintenance. Now,
And that apple
it sure will. Yep.
Oh, really? Okay, let me ask. My doctor, which I adore, I actually have a doctor I like. He told me to download this app. Have you heard it?
Yeah.
Okay, I have to download it.
That's one of the
first time.
That's one of the more user-friendly, right? So it makes it very, very simple. It's not going to dial down quite as some of the other apps, but it's a great place to start. And it will definitely, for 90% of people, that app will give you what you need, right? Once you really start dialing down, depending on how far, if you just want to have a basic your calories, know where you're at, know when you're in a deficit, know when you're plus, lose it's great. And it's very user friendly. Anyone can use it. It's not complicated, hard. Play around with it. The interface is very user.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a conscious effort to look at this 6 months. Now one of my sons counts calories. Now he was a hefty boy. And I saw him like a few years ago, and he was a therapist, right? He's a fine young man. Well, all my kids are fine. This guy was slender, and I had never seen a day I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, Dad, I count calories. And you know what? He lost me, right? To me, it sounds like a science. And you're saying not so much. Let me ask you, we talk about how long it developed a habit. Now, I'm sure Dr. Google could clarify what that means. But you being really on the streets, a trainer, working with people, how long do you see before an average individual, an average, not the best, but an average develops a habit of counting calories in a workout program? What have you witnessed in your time doing?
I'd say the first 30 days. The first 30 days are crucial because I know if I have a client after the first 30 days, if they're still staying very dialed in on the nutrition, if they're still showing up and ready to work out, then I know that person with that first month, first 4 weeks, and typically the people that drop out will probably drop out within the first week or two. If there are some, the further the time goes, like week 3, this will drop out. Week 4, very few. After that first month, the first 4 to 6 weeks, if they're still seeing me after 6 weeks, I can pretty much bank on the fact that dedicated, and they really mean business to this goal that. So that first 30 days is a good indicator to me that this person's serious.
That's good. Okay. I'm sorry. You just made me think, remember Redbeard, January was always like packed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And then just wait until February, March, and dwindle back down to normal again, all those new resolutions. And that makes me think, do you get a lot of clients that just appear in January?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, your caseload.
Yeah, we have the first 90 days of the year that are what's considered, and the just highest volume of signing up, the highest volume of people actually in the gym. And then once you go into April, May, it starts to level out, right? It's really one of those things where, as a regular gym goer, you're like, okay, the year flood, coming through, because then like equipment's, you're waiting in line for equipment,
Aggravating,
and it's like, gosh, I know, half of these people I'll meet in 2 months, But people that are coming specifically, that's more for a general gym membership, right? People that are coming specifically for personal training, they typically either already have a gym membership, they're not using it very much, or, that's more specific. A lot of people, that first thing, they'll just get a gym membership. But if they've kind of taken that next step to get an act to push them, to educate them and hold them accountable, those people tend to be a little, but then it's hit or miss. You can pretty much tell with the first month if that person, after the first month, if they're going to stick around. And as time goes by, you get less.
This has been a very useful session. And I think in terms of if you apply the knowledge, and I'm talking to the recovery community, if you apply your toolbox that you use in recovery, to stay away from illicits of alcohol and drugs, use those tools in your nutrition and your physical fitness endeavors, and you're going to be okay. Just like some of the tools, people, places, and things. Stay away from those people that encourage you to eat unhealthy, that want to watch TV, 8 hours a day. Stay away from places that are going to entice you to get off the track, right? So, and then of course the 3 Ps that fella taught me the other day. Again, have a program, a simple program. Just start off simple. Get a mentor. Find your purpose. Why are you doing this? Like, why did you want to abstain from alcohol and drugs? And have a passion, and goal, but all those things come with finding somebody that knows what they're talking about. So like you said, you've got to invest the time to find that person that's going to go on this journey with you. And again, using the tools, don't be discouraged. Don't quit before the miracle. All those things that we learn, right? We learn all those things.
Absolutely.
In our recovery, apply those same things. I can see and like the wealth management that I mentioned earlier, it's a long-term investment. So make it part of your routine. Write it on your calendar and make sure everybody knows. Have an accountability partner like you two guys, right? You had mentioned you guys are accountable to each other, even though Cody, I need an accountability. You said it's already in your. So this is good. I am personally going to think about some of these things. I do want some adjustments. I know they're going to be difficult. Like Pat says, got to move a mountain, but I got to bring the shovel. I get it. Closing thoughts from you guys? Redbeard?
I might have.
Okay.
I will say another big thing in the correlation, recovery and drugs and alcohol, and fitness, just like you said, right? Get a mentor, find what your purpose is, have accountability partners, don't isolate like my recovery for a period of time, isolate. And then also understand that you'll have good days and bad. You'll have days that you don't want to go to the gym. Just like you have days that you want to drink. You have days that you want to go, smoke a joint. You'll have days that whatever your DOC is, you'll have good days and bad days. Not every day is going to be rainbows and want to run into the gym and jump on the treadmill and lift the weights, right? You got to push yourself on those days. Just like you do in recovery. You got to push yourself to go to a meeting. You got to get to that meeting. And community. I highly recommend to start maybe a group class, like go to a spin class or go to a yoga class or and then you meet people in that class and they say, hey, want to go Thursday to this class? And those people then become your accountability partners. And those people then become your community of people that then hold you accountable, and those are like-minded individuals, people that they also have similar goals. You have people in recovery that are wanting to get sober and stay sober. You surround those type of people and they hold you accountable in your sobriety. Join a class, find a community, find something you enjoy, whether it be a hiking group, a rucking group, a running group, a cycling group, a yoga class, a Zumba class, whatever it is, find those and surround yourself with a community of those that are like-minded, similar goals.
I think what we need to do is start a parkour group.
Parkour.
Hey, what's that old man doing falling off that building? I like what you said, and I think we need to get together again and actually hit on some other things that we did not talk about in this segment. And one of them is actually food prep, meal prepping. Mm-hmm. And that's a science. I get it. I don't have the time for it. I already told you what my diet looks like. And I know the food is healthy, but it's still process, So, and I know there's the devil behind that. So we got to talk more about that in the future. And I got to face the reality that I need. Pat, any insight?
Amen.
Amen, Pat. And Pat is he beats himself up a lot, but he's done a really good job without putting any of his out there. In the short amount of time that we've been training together, me and Pat, I mentioned the biometric screening. Well, that's a every 30-day thing, right? So you do it, you get your biometrics every 30 days. You retake those biometrics. And me and Pat have done, his initial biometric. We've done 130 days in now, and and it encourages you to see the number moving. Oh, what I'm doing, this is paying off. I'm losing the fat. I'm gaining the muscle. And I feel better. And you'll start to feel better. Your clothes will start to be looser. You'll start to have better sleep at night. You'll start to be more motivated. Once you start seeing those changes, just like in your life, you get sober and you get clean. You start seeing the restoration of relationships, and you start seeing things change in your life, and you're great. And you get a little glimpse of what is to come, and just the tip of the iceberg, and it's encouraging. And so Pat has done a really good job. He beats himself up a lot, but there are many days where I don't know that if I was out in the sun all day doing physical labor, that I'd want to go spend an hour in the gym. And he does. He comes to the gym, he shows up, and he does it. And so
that's
I've got to
impressive.
give a big shout out. He's doing a good job. He's up. But
Thanks, buddy.
Guys, this has been a really, really great show. And Cody, as always, I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
We're going to be going live with your show here in the near future. Redbeard, which we all know is the brains and the producer behind the scenes. I'm the mouth, and we make a great team putting this thing together. So I'm looking forward to your show going live. And then I'm looking forward to this, and I don't know which is going to come first, producer. So, guys, as always, our audience out there, it's crazy, walking a recovery journey, and our tagline is "You are not alone." Nothing we do here is unique. There's plenty of podcasts out there, and the reason we do this is because the same reason. There's not enough churches. There's not enough recovery groups out there. We're just another podcast, and we are the People's Podcast. So, we have a message board that we monitor regularly. So if you have insight, thoughts, improvements, opportunity for improvements, please let us know. We did get one the other day that I thought was really insightful, and that's why I'm preaching resources so much. We really need to get our resources. And, if you're feeling like you're just struggling, you need to hear this. If nobody's told you they love you, we love you. And that is the most sincerest and we're looking forward to trudging that road to happy destiny with you. And until we talk again, have an outstanding recovery day. Peace out.